Okay, good morning everyone. This is my next class. In this class, I'm gonna show you a game which was played between Wesley Topalov and Magnus Carlsen in the Grand Slam final first round in 2008. Okay, Carlsen played Sicilian Dragon in this game. E4, C5, Knight F3, D6, D4, C cross D4, Knight D4, Knight F6, Knight C3, G6. So in this whole tournament, Carlsen played Sicilian Dragon against all opponents. So Bishop E3, Bishop G7, F3, Knight C6, Queen D2. In Sicilian Dragon, white usually castles on the king side and white castles on the queen side and black castles on the king side, and they will have a lot pawn storm in both the sides, which in dragon positions, whoever having more pawn storm and a good attacking chances, they have a good winning chances. So here castle shot and bishop c4. This bishop on c4 should play bishop on c4, or else knight e5 will prevent the bishop to come c4, and maybe bishop d7, rook c8, or most like bishop d7, rook c8. Then we cannot play bishop c4. So this all comes under line. So bishop d7, long castles, and rook c8. Now black is simply threatening by playing knight into d4, queen into d4, and knight g4. For example, now black is threatening knight into d4, queen into d4, then knight g4, winning the piece on c4. So here Topalov played bishop b3, knight e5, king b1, and a6. Okay, after a6, Topalov started his standard attack plan with h4, and Carlsen tries to block his attack by playing h5. g4. Topalov is now playing very aggressively. He likes to give his pawn and likes to attack the black king on g8. So given pawn sacrifice at g4 and h5, there is one more pawn sacrifice to open the lines of the king. Now it was forced to play with knight into g4, or else king will be very weak. If you take with g into rook d1, will be very bad for black. So knight into h5, rook dg1, and rook c5. Till this position, rook dg1 is played many of times, but rook c5 is a novelty played by Carlsen. The idea is to defend the 5th rank and even can develop his queen to a5 and other rook to c8. So rook c5 I think is an interesting novelty. So now Topalov is exchanging the bishops on g7. We played bishop h6. Why we need this bishop is because this bishop on g7 will be very good for black side. It can come to either attack when it is needed. It will give a shot on c3, or else it will defend the king on g8 very well. So white needs to exchange this bishop to continue his attack. So after bishop h6, now black is forcing to take bishop to h6, and queen h6 will be very bad for black. So he played a move queen h7, forcing the exchange on g7. So after bishop g7, king g7. Now I think white played a very good move by playing f4. The reason why f4 is very good because he should not allow a move like f5. because once f5, if black plays a move like f5 and supports the pawn on g4, then there is no way that these two rooks can do anything on g1 and h1. Maybe might be getting a sacrifice like rook h5 or even knight f5 some positions, but black can defend this position by playing rook h8 or even sometimes queen to f8 or even e6. So there is lots of defensive options. So white really don't want to allow f5 or even activate this bishop or anything. It simply wants to play f4 with an idea of f5 and opens the queen diagonal to h6 and doesn't want this f3 knight f3 to be taken more. And to attack this, black I think it's having lots of problem. So after f4, knight c4 is the only move, is the only logical move. Bishop c4, rook c4 and f5. Now the key point of this position. Now white can simply take this pawn on like rook g4 and maybe he will threat like rook h5. So here Carlsen played one more good move with e5. The reason why e5 is good because it doesn't allow the knight to sit on f5 or leaves the support of f5, and even it closes the diagonal of the king, which is very weak right now. So knight de2. Now so after knight de2, now black is trying to defend his position. So he played move like rook h8, and now here in this position white played b3. b3 is a very, I think it's a good move because simply for 1 point, now immediately white cannot take rook into g4, which will be a big mistake because after bishop into f5 this rook will be pinned. And the other point is he is having a flying square for his king to so as that there will be no back rank, any weakness. So here Carlsen played rook c6 and now he played rook into g4. The idea of rook g4 is simply doubling or even rook knight g3, exchanging the rooks or exchanging the queens, or even he can play something like rook g to h4, which looks like a very good move, this rook, and knight g3, keeping the pressure on h5. So black should take this knight, so I played knight f6 and rook g2 g1. After rook h1, now there is no way that black can support this, so he played knight g4 to prevent queen h6 check. In this position I strongly feel that white is clearly better because there is no good square for this bishop on d7, no good square for this knight. Rook on c6 is active but it is still doing nothing, whereas white rook is completely controlling the h file, and queen is ready to come to h6, knight is ready to jump to d5, the other knight is ready to join the attack. So white is failed. White is clearly better. So I played knight g3, supporting the f5 and king g8. So after king g8, white simply plays knight d5. He just simply wants to um, don't keep this knight on c3 without support, and the other idea is simply to come to knight e3 and exchange this knight on g4 such that queen will have a square on h7. So here play rook c5, knight e3 and knight e3, queen e3, and queen f6 is the only logical move to defend queen h6 and queen h8. Queen h6, queen g7, queen g5. Again queen g5 is a very good move, now leaving the squares behind. Just now white queen needs a entry point, then he can win this position very easily. So after queen g5, f6 was forced to play, and queen d2. Queen d2, the idea behind queen d2 is simply to take queen d6 and enter in this black position. So black was forced to support this by rook c6, and he played a little slow move, king b2. Now I think in this position white could have easily won by playing queen a5. Now the threat is to play queen d8. If you play rook c8, then queen d5, check king f8 and fg6 with the idea of rook h7, or if you take queen into g6, rook h8 wins on spot. So after queen a5, if you play a move b6, queen into a6, rook c8 preventing rook check, rook c8 and qb7, fg5, qd5 check, king f8 and queen d6 wins. So queen b2, king b2 is unnecessary completely. So here he played g into f5, queen a5. Now he sees the threat of queen d8. So queen e7 preventing queen e8 and queen d5 check, bishop e6. Now queen d1, another good move. Now he's threatening queen g5, queen h5. Now white is threatening queen h5 after queen g7, queen e8. So there is no way that white can stop this entry. So instead, he played queen g7. If he plays queen g5, then he can simply attack this with bishop f7. So here white played another move, e into f5, attacking the bishop on e6, and black cannot take off queen g3 in view of rook g1 losing the queen. So he played bishop f7, knight e4, king f8, knight d6 check, king e7. I think the rest of is pretty easy. Knight into b7, queen g8, queen d2, queen rook b6, queen d1, rook c8, knight d6, queen d7, knight into f7, queen into f7, queen into d2, rook into d2, king into f7, c4, king e7, king c3. So here Carlsen says you can Topalov can win this from this position, so he resigned. This is a very good game played between Valentin Topalov and Magnus Carlsen. Hope you enjoy the game. See you in the next class.